Put your faith in the light.
Hello guys, welcome to another one of my videos. This is Lightblade, and well, in this one I'll be doing an in-depth overview of the Herald of the Sun hero talents. This is the second in a three-part cover of all the changes that the War Within will bring for us. In a previous video we covered all the basic changes that Retribution Paladins got for the War Within, so if you want to check that out, I'll leave the link in the description of this one. And well, with that being said, let's start with the video. Okay, let's start by describing what the idea behind the Herald of the Sun is. What is its purpose? So I would say that Herald of the Sun is having its primary focus on mass AoE while still having some tools to deal with single target or priority targets if needed. A lot of its damage is uncapped, although for the most part it's going to be reduced after 5. But it will still hit everything. On top of that, it has a lot of damage over time effects that will do full damage to any number of targets no matter what. It has a small support side to it in which it can apply heal over time effects to allies, but that mostly is if it doesn't have enough targets to hit, enemy targets to hit, or has to hard cast specific spells on them. Like the actual Sun, Herald of the Sun is volatile and explosive, thriving in a combination with RNG talents like Divine Purpose and Radiant Glory, but we'll talk about those synergies and more when we get to that part of the video. All those things considered, it's no surprise that of the two hero talents that are available to us, this one gets the most hype. Everyone likes big AoE numbers. I personally see Herald of the Sun as the spiritual successor to the old Light's Decree style of Retribution Paladin, just going in and exploding on your enemies. Now, let's talk about the talents themselves. So now that we know what a Herald of the Sun does, let's talk about the talents, and we have to mention 3 specific ones to understand the engine that makes Herald of the Sun work. These talents are Dawnlight, Sun's Avatar, and Radiant Glory. Okay, let's start with Dawnlight. So this is the bread and butter of the build, everything is going to revolve around these Dawnlights. So casting Wake of Ashes causes your next 2 Holy Power spending abilities to apply Dawnlights on your targets, either dealing dot damage or healing your allies. 10% of that damage or healing is going to radiate to nearby enemies or allies, reduced beyond 5 targets. So yeah, this is the basic way to apply those Dawnlights, like I said, and this goes in really well synergy with Radiant Glory, because we're no longer going to be using normal wings. Instead of that, we're going to make our Wake of Ashes proc our wings, because this is going to have synergy with the Herald of the Sun build. On top of that, we have also a chance to proc wings for a lesser duration for each Holy Power we spend. Now we have to go to Sun's Avatar. This is what completes the build. So Sun's Avatar, during Avenging Wrath you become linked to your Dawnlights, causing radiant damage to enemies that pass through or healing to allies that pass through the beams, reduced beyond 5 targets. Activating Avenging Wrath applies 4 Dawnlights onto nearby allies or enemies and increases Dawnlight's duration by 25%. So you can see the synergy here between these three talents. Instead of using wings, we're going to make Wake of Ashes be our wings. Whenever we press Wake of Ashes, we get Dawnlights. Whenever we get wings, we get 4 Dawnlights. In total, you're going to get 6 of them, but there is the possibility that you can also proc wings on top of that, so you get an additional 4 Dawnlights at the start of your pull. So in the best case scenario, you might get 10 Dawnlights on your targets. All of them are pulsing AoE damage because of the 10% pulse damage from this talent. And on top of that, you're linked to them, and Sun's Avatar is also doing a ton of damage on them. That's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, you get 6, which is still incredibly powerful. You're still going to be doing the same things. So that's the main synergy that Herald of the Sun has with the Retribution talent tree. There are more, because it's radiant damage, so it benefits from things like Burning Crusade and things like that, but that is the bread and butter of the Herald of the Sun build. Now let's talk about the other talents that we have here. Okay, up next we have a choice node. So this is Morningstar versus Gleaming Rays. So Morningstar, every 5 seconds your next Dawnlight's damage or healing is increased by 5%, stacking up to 10 times. Morningstar stacks twice as fast while out of combat. So we gotta notice that this effect we have already seen in the past, and it's here with Inquisitor's Ire. It does the same thing for Divine Storm, it stacks 10 times. This never has seen use. I'm thinking this is the same thing is going to happen to Morningstar, because it just stacks too slowly. It also only affects 1 of your Dawnlights, and you can see that we can proc up to 10 Dawnlights at the start of a pull, 6 in the worst case scenario. So this is not doing a lot for us. But the other option, Gleaming Rays, this is really strong. While Dawnlights is active, your Holy Power spenders deal 10% additional damage or healing, period. flat out 10% extra damage on spenders, which is just always valuable. And I think this is just going to be the option you're going to take 99% of the times, with the exception on maybe only pure single target fights where you might take Morningstar. Okay, up next we have Eternal Flame. So I talked about the Herald of the Sun having a small support side, and this is part of it. Eternal Flame replaces your Word of Glory, and instead of just healing your target, you also put an additional healing over time effect on them, and if you heal yourself, you get extra 25% healing. So this has really good synergy with other talents. For example, you're gonna proc your Eternal Flame on yourself whenever you get low with your Guided Prayer. You can increase it with Healing Hands, so it's a pretty good talent that we're getting. It just amplifies our already good off-healing capabilities of Retribution Paladin, so good talent overall. Next up we have Luminosity. So critical strike chance of Hammer of Wrath and Divine Storm increased by 10%. You're gonna see a lot of that in Herald of the Sun. They focus a lot on Hammer of Wrath and Divine Storm specifically. They try to amplify their power the most. This is a very simple talent, but it's very strong. It's even stronger now that the Blizzard fixed our scaling with different stats, so all the critical strike from this thing is never going to be wasted. Really good talent. Okay, next up we have another choice node here, and this is to a utility choice node. So this is Illumine versus Will of the Dawn. I think both options have value, and it's going to really depend on the situation. So Illumine first. Dawnlight reduces the movement speed of enemies by 50% and increases the movement speed of allies by 20%. So as we know, we can drop up to 10 Dawnlights if we RNG correctly, 6 if we don't, which is still really good, and applying a 50% slow to 6 enemies, it has some value. Although now there is no longer Spiteful that we have to run away from, it might help tanks to kite if there's some really annoying mechanics on the trash. So it's a pretty decent talent option. The second one I think is a bit more reliable because it just gives you a flat bonus, and you know when it's going to happen as well. So movement speed is increased by 5% while above 80% health, and when your health is dropped below 35%, your movement speed is increased by 40%. So this is just a, oh crap, I stepped on something, I have to move really fast. So it helps you recover from pretty dangerous situations. I think both have value, and you're going to use them depending on the situation you are and what you want to do. So let's move to the next one. Okay guys, up next we have another choice node. This is Blessing of Anshe versus Lingering Radiance. This is a really good example on the tools that Herald of the Sun has to deal with single target encounters and priority target situations. Blessing of Anshe is a really powerful talent. Your damage and healing over time effects have a chance to increase your damage of the next Hammer of Wrath by 200% and make it usable on any target regardless of the health. So this has really good synergy with things like, for example, Vengeful Wrath if you want to go full single target. Even if you don't take Vengeful Wrath and instead of that prefer to take Divine Purpose, if you take Blessing of Anshe, it's still super solid and it's going to make your priority damage really good, especially in Mythic Plus situations. The other option is not so great, but it still has some value. So Lingering Radiance. Dawnlight leaves an Eternal Flame for 12 seconds on allies or a Greater Judgment on enemies when it expires. So this is not so good because we already apply Judgment very often with just our normal judgments. You throw in them, Divine Toll. Sometimes you're going to be taking things like Hyler's Wrath that applies 2 charges of Judgment on top of your targets. So this is kind of not needed in terms of, it's a bit overkill in applying judgments, but it still can have some value if you just want to go full AoE. But I think having that priority damage from Blessing of Anshe is just too valuable. So yeah, that's that. Let's go to the next one. Okay, up next we have Sunseer. This is a pretty simple talent. Hammer of Wrath and Divine Storm critical strikes just put a dot on your targets that deal radiant damage over 4 seconds. Super simple, has really good synergy with a previous talent that we talked about, Luminosity. As you see that pattern, Herald of the Sun wants to amplify Hammer of Wrath as its like priority tool, priority damage tool, and Divine Storm as like big AoE as well. This is great because it's dot damage. Dot damage means that it's always going to be uncapped. If your Divine Storm crits 10 things, it's going to apply the dot to the 10 things, and they're going to take full damage from this dot. Really powerful, well, really simple talent. Also, it's radiant damage, so it benefits from things like Burning Crusade, and the dot from this thing also can proc your Blessing of Anshe. So really good synergy with all these talents. Let's move to the next one. Okay, next up we have Aurora. This one is just super simple. After you cast Wake of Ashes, you gain Divine Purpose. Period. To the point. This is really good because it guarantees you have 2 holy power spenders to use at the start of your rotation to apply your 2 downlights, because you have 3 from your Wake of Ashes and you have your free divine purpose. This even works if you're not using divine purpose. So in really heavy single target situations, you might want to take Vengeful Wrath instead of divine purpose. You can do it. You're still going to be getting that free divine purpose from Aurora. But I think most of the time you're going to want to keep divine purpose just to throw a lot of holy power spenders and get benefits from a Gleaming Rays, extra damage, and the amps from Divine Storm on the different other talents. So Aurora, just great talent, you know, super simple. Let's move to the next one. Okay, next up we have Solar's Grace. So this talent already got nerfed, by the way. It was just that good. It used to be increases your haste by 4%. So let's read it. Your haste is increased by 3% for 12 seconds each time you apply a Dawnlight. Multiple stacks may overlap. So you remember we said we can apply up to 10 Dawnlights if we hit the nuts on our RNG opener? Yeah, that would have given you 40% in base case scenario. But now it's down to only 30% haste on the best case scenario of RNG. Now, if you don't hit any RNG, you're going to get still 18% haste, which is a really respectable amount. Also, we have to mention that this haste is multiplicative. This means that it makes any other source of haste a bit better. So it's just a really good talent that we have here. Let's move to the next one. Okay, so the last talent we're going to talk about is Second Sunrise. So Divine Storm and Hammer of Wrath have a 15% chance to cast again at 30% effectiveness. This for your Divine Storm is basically just giving you another Tempest of the Lightbringer, and it's pretty on theme on what Herald of the Sun wants to do. You know, we talked about it, it's volatile, it likes randomness, and this talent personifies that same thing. And well guys, to end the video, I'll give you guys my final thoughts on Herald with some gameplay in the background. So Herald of the Sun truly deserves all the hype around it. It's super fun to play even in heroic dungeons where stuff dies a bit too fast. Its true strength will be in Mythic Plus, where mobs live long enough to get good value of the multitude of dots it applies. While its single target is not the strongest, that would be Templar's territory, it holds its own with the tools Blizzard gave it. Paladins have been lucky. Our hero talents are around the best ones out there, and in the next video I'll be talking about Templar. And that's going to be the video for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching everyone.